The evening was warm, the baseball field alive with families cheering. 6-year-old Morgan Nick was playing nearby, surrounded by parents and friends. Then, in a moment no one saw coming, she vanished. Not from a quiet street or empty place, but from a crowded ballpark where everyone assumed she was safe. If you care about stories like this, please subscribe now, not for numbers, but so Morgan's story isn't forgotten. By nightfall, Morgan was gone. What started as an ordinary night became one of America's most haunting missing child cases. The most disturbing part? The answer wasn't far away. It was already there, among the crowd. Before we continue, take a moment and ask yourself, if you were there, would you have noticed something unusual? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your insight matters. Because this isn't just Morgan's story. It's a reminder how quickly everything can change.
June 9, 1995. Alma, Arkansas. If you've never been there, picture this. A quiet town where everyone knows everyone. The kind of place where kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. Where parents don't think twice about letting their children play outside. That night, a Little League baseball game was wrapping up at Wofford Field. It was warm. The sun was starting to set. Families were packing up their coolers and folding their lawn chairs. Morgan Nick was 6 years old. She had blonde hair, green eyes, and she was wearing a bright green Girl Scouts shirt. Her mom, Colleen, was there watching the game. Morgan had been playing near the bleachers all evening with other kids. Laughing. Running around. Doing what kids do. Around 8:30, the game ended. Morgan asked her mom if she could go catch fireflies with some other children near the parking lot. It was still light out. Other parents were around. Colleen said yes. That decision would replay in her mind every single day for the rest of her life. Morgan ran off with a group of kids. They were maybe 30 feet away. Close enough to see. Close enough to hear. Close enough to feel safe. But here's the thing about a crowd. Everyone assumes someone else is watching. Multiple people saw Morgan that night. But no one saw her leave. Let me tell you about Morgan for a second. She wasn't just a name in a news report. She was a real little girl with a personality. She loved playing outside. She loved animals. She had just finished kindergarten and was excited about summer. Her mom described her as sweet, curious, a little shy around strangers, but confident around people she knew. Morgan was the kind of kid who trusted adults. She'd been taught to be polite, to listen, to follow the rules. And that's important to understand. Because when you're 6 years old, you don't yet know that some people break the rules in the worst possible ways. Alma was a town where kids played freely. Parents didn't hover. It wasn't neglect. It was trust. Trust in the community. Trust that nothing bad could happen here. But trust only works when everyone deserves it. Morgan was allowed to play near the parking lot that night because her mom believed she was safe. And honestly, most of us would have made the same call. There were other kids. Other families. It was a public place. So why wouldn't she be safe? And then, one adult noticed something small. Something that didn't feel right. It started with a question. One of the other kids came back to the bleachers and asked, "Where's Morgan?" At first, Colleen wasn't worried. Maybe Morgan had gone to the bathroom. Maybe she was playing on the other side of the field. She called her name. No answer. She walked toward the parking lot where the kids had been playing. Still no Morgan. Now, if you're a parent, you know that feeling. That split second where your brain tries to stay calm, but your heart starts moving faster. You tell yourself she's fine. She's nearby. She's just out of sight. But then a minute passes. Then 2. Then 5. And suddenly, you're not walking anymore. You're running. Colleen started asking other parents. Have you seen Morgan? Blonde hair, green shirt? No one had. Other families joined the search. They spread out across the field. They checked the playground. The concession stand. The parking lot. They called her name over and over. Nothing. By now, the sun had fully set. The field was emptying out. And Morgan was nowhere. Someone called the police. Here's a question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you assumed someone else was keeping an eye on things? Maybe at a park, a mall, a family gathering. If you have, share this video. Because that assumption, that one innocent assumption, changed everything here. Within minutes, Alma police arrived at the field. And what started as a simple search was about to become something much, much bigger. Here's where things get complicated. The police started interviewing people who were still at the field. And right away, they learned something important. Morgan hadn't been alone when she disappeared. Other children had been playing with her in the parking lot. They were pouring sand out of their shoes, catching bugs, just being kids. And some of them remembered seeing a man. He was standing near a red truck with a white camper shell. He wasn't playing with the kids. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just watching. One child said the man had asked them for help finding his lost dog. Now, think about that for a second. A strange man, at a kid's baseball game, asking children for help. Does that sound right to you? The kids described him as white, maybe in his 20s or 30s. Some said he had a mustache. Others weren't sure. Their memories were jumbled. And that makes sense. They were young. It was getting dark. And no one had any reason to be paying close attention. Until Morgan didn't come back. Police also found tire tracks near where the kids had been playing. They took photos. They measured them. They noted the make and model of vehicles that matched the description. A red Dodge pickup. Older model. White camper shell on the back. It wasn't much. But it was something. What seemed like small details would later become crucial. By midnight, Wofford Field was flooded with law enforcement. Alma Police, Arkansas State Police, the FBI, K-9 units, volunteers from surrounding towns. They searched every inch of that field. The woods nearby, abandoned buildings, drainage ditches, anywhere a child could be hidden. Roadblocks went up on every major road leaving town. Officers stopped cars, checked trunks, asked questions. Helicopters flew overhead with searchlights. The entire town was awake. And everyone was asking the same question. Where is Morgan? Her face was on the news within hours. Blonde hair, green eyes. Last seen wearing a green Girl Scouts shirt and blue denim shorts. The search continued for days. Then weeks. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder through fields and forests. Divers checked nearby lakes and rivers. Investigators followed up on hundreds of tips. But despite the scale of the search, despite the thousands of man-hours, despite the desperation of everyone involved, Morgan was never found. After a few months, the tips started slowing down. Leads that seemed promising went nowhere. Witnesses couldn't agree on details. The red truck was never located. Investigators kept working, but the trail was getting colder. Colleen Nick refused to give up. She started the Morgan Nick Foundation to help other families dealing with missing children. She kept Morgan's story in the media. She attended vigils. She spoke at schools. She did everything she could to keep her daughter's name alive. Because here's the thing about cases like this. The world moves on. The news cycle shifts. People forget. But for the family, time stops. Every birthday that passes without Morgan is another year of not knowing. Every holiday. Every June 9th. For Colleen, life became a waiting game. Waiting for answers. Waiting for closure. Waiting for someone to come forward with the truth. And she waited for years. Cold cases don't solve themselves. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe these families deserve answers, this is the moment to subscribe. Because I'm going to keep telling these stories. And your support helps make sure they're never forgotten. 14 years. That's how long it took before investigators had a new lead. In 2009, detectives started re-examining old witness statements. They looked at people who had been questioned early on but never fully investigated. And one name kept coming up. Billy Jack Links. Links had been living in the Alma area in 1995. He drove a red pickup truck. And here's the part that made investigators pay attention. He had a criminal history. Not just minor offenses. Serious ones. The kind that made him exactly the type of person who should have been looked at more closely from the beginning. But somehow, he'd slipped through the cracks. Police started building a case. They re-interviewed witnesses. They reviewed evidence. They followed up on details that hadn't seemed important 15 years earlier. And slowly, the pieces started coming together. Links matched the description given by the children. He had access to a vehicle that matched. He had a history that fit the profile. But here's the problem with cold cases. Evidence degrades. Memories fade. Witnesses move away. And proving what happened years ago is incredibly difficult. Still, investigators believed they had enough. 14 years after Morgan vanished, they made a move. In 2010, Billy Jack Links was arrested. Not in Arkansas. He'd moved to Florida. But authorities tracked him down and brought him back. He was charged in connection with Morgan Nick's disappearance. When the news broke, it sent shockwaves through Alma. After all these years, could this finally be it? Could they finally have answers? Colleen Nick held on to hope. But she was cautious. She'd been through false leads before. She'd gotten her hopes up only to have them crushed. This time felt different. but nothing was certain. Links denied any involvement. He refused to cooperate with investigators. And without a body, without physical evidence directly tying him to Morgan's disappearance, the case remained complicated. The community wanted justice. They wanted closure. But an arrest didn't mean immediate answers. Here's the difficult truth about cases like this. Sometimes, even when investigators believe they know what happened, proving it in court is a different story. There was no physical evidence directly linking Links to Morgan. No DNA. No witnesses who saw him take her. No confession. What they had was circumstantial. The truck. The timeline. The criminal history. Witness descriptions. In some cases, that's enough. In others, it's not. Prosecutors had to weigh whether they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Links was responsible. And that's a high bar. Meanwhile, Links remained in custody on other charges. Serious charges. The kind that meant he wasn't going anywhere. But the question everyone wanted answered, the question that had haunted this case for 15 years, remained unanswered. What happened to Morgan Nick? And then, in 2011, something happened that would close one chapter while leaving so many others unfinished. Billy Jack Links died in custody. He was never formally tried for Morgan's disappearance. He never confessed. He never gave investigators the answers they were looking for. And just like that, the case was legally concluded. But for Colleen, for the community, for everyone who had spent years searching for Morgan, it wasn't closure. It was an ending without an answer. Morgan's body was never recovered. Her final moments remain unknown. And the hope that she might somehow, someway still be alive, was gone. Let that sink in for a second. A mother who spent 16 years fighting for her daughter. Who never stopped searching. Who built a foundation to help other families. Who kept Morgan's name alive when the world tried to move on. And in the end, all she got was the death of a suspect. No trial. No confession. No grave to visit. Just silence. Morgan Nick's case changed things. Not just in Alma, but across the country. Her disappearance led to increased awareness about child safety at public events. It sparked conversations about how easy it is to lose sight of a child in a crowd. It reminded people that predators don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they blend in. The Morgan Nick Foundation continues to work with families of missing children. They provide resources, support, hope, and Colleen Nick, even after everything, continues to fight. Because Morgan's case isn't the only one. There are thousands of families still waiting. Still searching. Still hoping. Here's a question for you. Do you think large public events are safer now, or do they actually make it easier for people to miss warning signs? Think about it. When you're in a crowd, do you notice what's happening around you? Or do you assume someone else is paying attention? Comment your thoughts below. Because this conversation matters. You know what keeps people up at night about this case? It's the proximity. Morgan's mom was 30 feet away. 30 feet. That's the length of a small room. That's close enough to hear a child laugh. Close enough to call out and get an answer. But in the chaos of a game ending, of families packing up, of kids running around, 30 feet might as well have been 30 miles. Because in that tiny window of time, someone took Morgan. And no one saw it happen. Think about how calculated that had to be. How carefully someone must have been watching. Waiting for that exact moment when attention shifted. When parents were distracted. When other kids weren't looking. That level of planning is terrifying. Because it means this wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. And that changes everything. The kids who were playing with Morgan that night grew up carrying something heavy. Some of them blamed themselves. They wondered if they should have noticed sooner. If they should have screamed when they saw the man. If they could have done something different. But here's what you need to understand. They were children. 6, 7, 8 years old. They didn't have the life experience to recognize danger. They didn't know that a man asking about a lost dog might be lying. They didn't know to be suspicious. How could they? We teach kids to be helpful. To be kind. To respect adults. And predators know that. They use it. One of the children later said the man seemed nice. Normal. He didn't look scary. He didn't act threatening. And that's the point. If dangerous people look dangerous, they'd never get close to anyone. They succeed because they know how to seem safe. They know how to blend in at a little league game. How to stand near a parking lot without raising suspicion. How to approach children without anyone noticing. Until it's too late. In the days after Morgan disappeared, Alma became the center of national attention. News crews from every major network set up in the small town. Morgan's face was on every channel. Her story was in every newspaper. The FBI brought in their best investigators. They set up a command center. They interviewed hundreds of people. They followed every possible lead. Volunteers searched day and night. They walked through fields in 100-degree heat. They pushed through dense woods. They checked every abandoned barn, every old shed, every place a child might be hidden. And they found nothing. No clothing. No evidence. No sign that Morgan had ever been there. It was like she had simply vanished into thin air. But people don't just vanish. Someone knew what happened. Someone saw something. Someone was responsible. The question was whether they would ever be found. Weeks turned into months. The media moved on to other stories. The volunteers went back to their normal lives. The search team scaled back. But Colleen didn't stop. She couldn't. Because somewhere out there was her daughter. And as long as there was even the smallest chance Morgan was alive, she had to keep looking. Let's talk about that red pickup truck for a minute. Multiple children described it. Red Dodge. White camper shell. Older model. Parked near where they were playing. Investigators took those descriptions seriously. They created a list of every registered vehicle matching that description in a 100-mile radius. Do you know how many there were? Hundreds. In rural Arkansas in the 90s, pickup trucks were everywhere. Red was a common color. Camper shells were normal. Finding one specific truck was nearly impossible. But they tried. Officers visited homes. They checked driveways. They looked at work sites and used car lots. They followed up on tips from people who thought they'd seen the vehicle. And every single lead went nowhere. Some trucks were the wrong year. Others had been sold months earlier. Some owners had solid proof they were somewhere else that night. The truck seemed to have vanished just like Morgan. Now, think about what that means. Either the description was wrong. Or the person responsible got rid of the truck immediately. Or they were smart enough to hide it where no one would look. Any of those options is disturbing. Because it suggests planning. Preparation. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. By 1996, the tips had slowed to a trickle. The FBI scaled back their involvement. Local police kept the case open, but they had other crimes to investigate. Other emergencies to handle. Morgan's case became one folder in a filing cabinet. One unsolved mystery among thousands. And for Colleen, that was unacceptable. She made a decision that would define the rest of her life. If law enforcement couldn't keep Morgan's case in the spotlight, she would. In 1996, she founded the Morgan Nick Foundation. The goal was simple. Help families of missing children. Provide resources. Keep cases alive. She spoke at schools about stranger danger. She organized annual searches on the anniversary of Morgan's disappearance. She worked with legislators to improve laws protecting children. She turned her grief into action. And in doing so, she helped countless other families navigate the nightmare she was living. But every night, when the work was done, when the events were over, when the cameras were off, she went home to an empty bedroom. A bedroom that still had Morgan's toys. Her clothes. Her drawings on the wall. A bedroom frozen in time. Waiting for a little girl who would never come home. Fast forward to 2009. A new investigator was assigned to Morgan's case. He did what good investigators do. He started from the beginning. He read every report, every witness statement, every tip that had come in over the years. And he noticed something. Billy Jack Lynx had been questioned early in the investigation. He lived in the area. He drove a red truck. But for some reason, he'd never been fully investigated. Why? Maybe there were too many suspects. Maybe his truck didn't match exactly. Maybe he had an alibi that seemed solid at the time. But now, looking at the case with fresh eyes, this investigator saw red flags everywhere. Lynx had a criminal record. He'd been in trouble before. The kind of trouble that should have made him a prime suspect. So the investigator dug deeper. He re-interviewed witnesses. He looked at where Lynx had been living in 1995. He checked to see if anyone had seen him at the baseball field that night. And slowly, a picture started to form. Lynx fit the description given by the children. He had the right type of vehicle. He had a history that made him dangerous. It wasn't proof. But it was enough to take another look. Here's something that will make your blood run cold. Billy Jack Lynx wasn't arrested until 2010. 15 years after Morgan disappeared. Do you know what that means? For 15 years, he was out there. Living his life. Going about his business. And if he was responsible for what happened to Morgan, he got away with it for a decade and a half. How many other children could have been at risk during that time? How many other families could have been destroyed? This is why these cases matter. This is why we can't let them go cold. Because when dangerous people slip through the cracks, they don't just stop. They don't suddenly become safe. They find new opportunities. New victims. New families to destroy. And that's exactly what makes Morgan's case so heartbreaking. If investigators had connected the dots sooner, If Lynx had been looked at more carefully in 1995, maybe things would have been different. Maybe Morgan would have been the last. But we'll never know. When Lynx was arrested in 2010, Colleen Nick didn't celebrate. She'd been waiting for this moment for 15 years. But now that it was here, it felt hollow. Because an arrest doesn't bring back a child. It doesn't erase 15 years of not knowing. Of searching. Of hoping. Of grieving without a grave. Colleen attended every court hearing. She looked Lynx in the eye. She waited for him to say something. Anything. But he never did. He maintained his innocence. He refused to cooperate. He gave no answers. And then, in 2011, he died in custody. Just like that, the one person who might have known what happened to Morgan was gone. No trial. No confession. No chance for Colleen to hear the truth. Just another ending without closure. Morgan Nick would be 35 years old today. Think about that for a second. She could have graduated high school. Gone to college. Started a career. Fallen in love. Had children of her own. She could have been anything. Instead, she's a face on a missing poster. A name in a case file. A memory that gets a little harder to hold on to with each passing year. And Colleen Nick is now a woman in her 60s, still waiting for answers she'll probably never get. That's the real tragedy of cases like this. It's not just the child who's lost. It's everyone who loved them. It's the life they never got to live. The birthdays that pass in silence. The milestones that never happen. It's a hole that can never be filled. So what do we take away from Morgan's story? First, crowds are not safe. They feel safe. But they create blind spots. They create moments where everyone assumes someone else is watching. Second, predators don't look like monsters. They look normal. They act normal. That's how they get close. Third, we have to stay vigilant. Even in places that feel safe. Even in small towns where everyone knows everyone. Even at a kid's baseball game. Because danger doesn't announce itself. It waits for the moment we let our guard down. And then it strikes. Morgan's case changed how law enforcement handles missing children cases. It led to faster responses. Better communication between agencies. More resources for families. The Morgan Nick Foundation has helped thousands of families navigate the worst moments of their lives. But none of that brings Morgan back. None of that gives Colleen the answer she's been searching for since June 9, 1995. And that's what makes this story so hard to tell. Because there's no happy ending. No resolution. No moment where everything makes sense. Just a little girl who went to catch fireflies and never came home. The Morgan Nick case is officially closed. Billy Jack Lynx is dead. There are no other suspects. Law enforcement believes they know who was responsible, even if they could never prove it in court. But for anyone who's followed this case, for anyone who remembers Morgan's face on the news, the question remains. Where is she? Without a body, without physical evidence, without a confession, we may never know what happened that night. We may never know where Morgan is. Whether she suffered. How long she survived. And for Colleen, that unknowing is its own kind of torture. She said in interviews that she'll never stop looking. That even though Lynx is dead, even though the case is closed, she still hopes. Maybe Morgan is out there somewhere. Maybe she's alive with no memory of who she was. Maybe someday, someone will come forward with information. It's a small hope. An unlikely hope. But when you're a mother who lost her child, hope is all you have left. Like, subscribe and comment where you are watching from. See you in the next video.